Hello, happy Friday, and welcome to Designing XD. I'm your host today, Ainsley Wagoner. I am a senior product designer on the Adobe XD team, and I'm very pleased to be with you. It's good to be back. Hello to everyone in the chat. Hi, Jack and Eric. Thanks so much for joining us. I hope your Fridays are going well. And this is my first Adobe Live after Max. It's been a few months since I came and joined you all and chatted about Designing XD. So how was everyone's Max? Did you go? Did you tune in? What were you excited about that they announced? Hi, Santaji. Welcome to Designing XD. I would love to hear how everyone's Max was. It's a big deal for us at the company. It was a big deal for us on XD. We worked really hard to get things ready, and it's exciting to go to Max and see all of the other great features and new products and advancements to products. And then it's also really exciting for us as a product design team to finally get to talk about the things we've been working on all year. Because of course we're releasing every month, and I think I heard that we had actually like 50 releases last year, and some of those are small kind of follow-up releases. But so we're releasing features all during the year, but we save like our biggest and best ones for Max. So it was really cool to be able to finally show what we've been working really hard on. So I would love to hear what you all were excited about at Max and what new features you're excited about in XD. So today, I'm going to talk to you about blend modes. And blend modes was not something that launched at Max. It's been in the product for a few months. I think it launched in the summer, but it's a feature that I worked on early this year, and I'm really excited to talk to you all about what went into designing it and the things you can do with it, and the things I thought about and me and the product team thought about while we were making it. So I would love for you to come along on the ride and tell me some of your thoughts about blend modes and how you use them. So first and foremost, I wanted to talk about the very beginning of the process. So we do a lot of different things here on our Friday edition of Designing XD, but today I'm going to kind of do a version of this program where we talk about the actual like start to finish design of a feature. Hi and welcome, Dawood. So we knew that we wanted to do blend modes in XD, and we considered this a core feature, a core design tool in XD. Let me close my assets panel. So some of the reasons behind wanting to do blend modes in XD is like just to have parity, right? Like we have blend modes in Illustrator, we have blend modes in Photoshop. We wanted to be able to give people the things that they expect from Adobe tools. So that's pretty straightforward. And then we also wanted to support workflows from other tools. So not only did we want to be at parity with other Adobe tools and other competitor UX design tools, but we wanted people who were coming from Photoshop, for example, or Illustrator, who had made all of their comps and were doing their web design in those products and using blend modes. We wanted them to be able to replicate those and bring their work into XD without having to go through all the work of like exporting those images with the blend modes and then like making that a separate PNG. We wanted you to be able to just do it in XD. And then finally, we wanted to just make this a more nuanced design tool. So as you know, we launched 2 years ago with very stripped down core design tools in XD, and we've been slowly building upon that. And one of the things that we felt like gave people more control and more nuanced is blend modes. And so we're always thinking about how we can keep XD very clean and simple and straightforward and accessible, but also let you have the tools that you need to be able to be as expressive as possible. So that's some thinking behind why do blend modes. And so some things that we thought about when we were going into it, the product manager and I and the engineers were, so what are people's expectations? So when you're designing a feature, a core feature like blend modes, that's something that we're not inventing anything. It's a feature that is out there in the world that people are familiar with. We have to consider whether, we have to make sure that we're designing something that that matches people's expectations, right? So we didn't want to reinvent the wheel. We didn't want to do something so different that people were confused and didn't recognize how to use it. We wanted it to be intuitive. I think that's the best word for it. So we wanted to do something that was intuitive, but at the same time, we were excited because we had the opportunity to innovate on how blend modes are done. So I would really love to hear, oh, hey, Drake, and Cornelian, welcome to Adobe Live, Designing XD. So Drake is saying that blend modes are 90% of the reason clients buy into their projects, and it's such a value add. It's such a sort of magical switch that you can flip to add depth to your designs. And I'm really curious, when we were thinking about how can we innovate on blend modes, I'm really curious your all's thoughts. Like, what are ways that blend modes could be easier? I have my sort of like pet thing that I would like to do in the future, but I'm curious how you all use them. So we were weighing like how to be intuitive versus how to improve upon existing ways that we use blend modes. And then we were thinking about where people are going to be accessing blend modes. So are they going to be accessing it at just the fill level in the property inspector, or does this go into a color picker level? So we wanted them to be discoverable, yes, but then also we wanted to give nuanced access to where you could apply blend modes to the elements on your canvas. And then that leads us to where can blend modes be applied? Is there any limit to it? Can they be applied to every single object? Or, what happens when you have several objects stacked on top of each other? Can you apply them to a group? That's all things that we thought about. So that's where my head was at going into blend modes and things that we thought about along the way. I want to give just a quick demo of the way that blend modes work. So, and just in case you haven't tried it, I'm gonna kind of call awareness to it right now. But so here is an image. I'm gonna start back on normal. So here's sort of like a really basic mock-up of a website that I made in order to demonstrate some fun blend modes. So at the most basic level, a really fun way to use blend modes is having an image and then putting that on a colored background. Oh, so Drake is saying they use them on websites a decent amount. And there's an example in the chat that you can check out where Drake has used blend modes, and it's an added sort of design nuance that a lot of clients really like. So yes, totally. And I'm really happy that we have it now. So let's look at an example of an image on a colored background. Easy, right? This looks okay now, but then when we add, let's say, this is one that I kind of settled on early on. I really liked the way this made it sort of a grayscale tone, but then blended it with the bright yellow background on the screen. And so this now just feels like it fits in as a composition. So another thing you can do is like, now this is blending with the background, but what if I want to add something kind of a cool thing over top of it? Let's look at adding a little bit of an overlay. So that's just me taking this red square and laying it over that image, and then choosing one of my favorite blend modes is multiply. I feel like I use that one a lot, and it almost always gives me what I want. So now I've made that multiply, and now that's blending in with the image, which has lumosity applied to it. Am I saying that right? No, luminosity applied to it. And so now this is becoming like a really interesting composition, and I just had to sort of click 2 drop-down options. All right, so let's look at applying blend modes to text. You can also apply it to text, which is really great. Let's find one that we like. So that's darken. That's color burn. That's kind of cool. It's making it, on my screen, it is like a bright green. Lighten kind of just turns it white. It's really fun to play around with the different options that it gives you. I like that. So I have added a blend mode to this text. Okay. Oh, Eric, I totally agree. I think you're talking about an enhancement to blend modes that lets you have an object selected and then tab through the different blend modes and see what they might be. So that's a really good point, and we totally hear you, and that's an enhancement that we'd really like to add to this feature. Cornelian says, and they want to be able to view all panels at the same time too. Okay, so yeah, that is really interesting, because when we were working on this, one thing that I was really inspired by were certain photo editing apps. Especially, I liked the innovation that Visco had put in with, I don't know when they did it, maybe a year ago. It's not super new, but the ability, instead of having your photo and then paging through the different filters and then trying to remember which one you liked, it just applied them. It just applied the filter, or it does now, it just applies the filter to the photo and lets you preview it. So I think, Cornelian, that's what you're talking about. So wanting to view all the panels at the same time too. Correct me in the chat if I'm misinterpreting your blend modes fantasy. But I think that's what you're thinking about, is like having a preview of it without having to make that selection yourself. I totally hear you. So what will happen if we apply this to a repeat grid? That is a good question. So what if I want everything in this whole repeat grid to have a blend mode? Oh, it looks like I have a little bit of remnant there. So let's see how I can just make everything in this repeat grid nice and interesting. So color burn is pretty rad, but I'm losing some visibility there. Lighten is interesting. I think I remember liking hue. Now this is like pretty abstract, but I just like the color effects that this gave, and so I wanted to show you all. So Santaji says, will XD be getting layer styles anytime soon? Tell me more about what you want out of layer styles. That's something that we talk about. I don't know that, I can't give you any dates on that, but yeah, I would love to hear more about what you want to see from layer styles. Okay, so while I like this as a composition, maybe I want something a little more visible. So let's settle with multiply. And okay, so then lastly, I want to show you all how this works with components. So scrolling down this sort of fake website page, landing page that I have created, what I have here is a button, which I've made into a master component. This is a master component. And what I want to do is now apply a blend mode to this. So of course, as you would expect, once I do that, see, I have my multiply, and now you can see down here, these are all instances of this master component. So you can see that this is the master component because it has this filled in green rectangle. And then down here are my instances of that component, and it has a little, I don't know if you can see it on my screen, I can zoom way in. It stays small though. A little diamond with a hole inside of it. So that tells me that this is an instance of this. And if I add perhaps multiply, let's see what else we can do. I kind of like that. I have a very extreme background color. I don't know on the web if it's coming through. On my screen, it's really fluorescent. I really love working with bright colors. It makes me feel awake and alive. And I wonder if it looks as fluorescent to you as it does to me. This is a more golden yellow on the screen that I see. So I have applied now this blend mode that is actually difference. And so now it's kind of this nice lavender, and it blends with the overall composition. And you can see that I updated that everywhere by just updating the master component. But if I just wanted to make a blend mode on one of the instances, not that one. Let's see, maybe color burn. So I can have that be local to that instance of that component. And then last but not least, I don't actually know what I was trying to show on this page. I feel like I've showed you how blend modes work on all the things. So let's now get into using them and designing something from scratch with blend modes. So I'm gonna scroll over and show you all. I just went on Dribbble and I just searched for blend modes just to see what people kind of were doing with them. And I found this cool image that was made by Dan Cederholm, actually, the founder of Dribbble. And it was tagged with blend modes, and I just liked the simplicity of this color gradient and how I believe that the actual Dribbble shot was talking about using blend modes on the web, which is another reason we want to support them in XD, because people are building websites with XD, and so we want to be able to specify all of the CSS controls that you can use on the web. So we want to be able to use blend modes because that's something that you can do with CSS. So I liked this image, and I thought, actually, when I was kind of browsing and just very briefly looking at it, it reminded me of a cool series of drop-down menus that would maybe expand into more information. So I wanted to try to replicate that in UI using some basic UI, but then also using blend modes. Oh, okay, so Santaji's following up about layer styles. Yes, I totally hear you. Layer styles is something that we think about, especially in the context of the layers panel, or the assets in the layers panel. Hi, Richard. Welcome to Designing XD. Happy Friday. So Santaji, I know that there's a shortcut in XD that lets you actually paste all of the attributes of something. I know this isn't exactly what you're asking for, but just in case you don't know about it, I was kind of playing with this earlier. It's somewhat like layer styles, and it gives you a similar control. If you want to, for instance, I'm going to right click and copy this rectangle, and then say I want this, actually I will make a new one because this one's already a little bit similar, but say I want to make this new shape have all of the same styles as this rectangle, all I need to do is hit Option Command V, or to sort of show you my hand a little bit, paste appearance when you right click. So that like copies all of those styles over onto the object, which is really nice. And that's one thing that I know I've used the layers styles for, or object styles like you're saying in InDesign. But it's great to hear that that's something that you are interested in seeing in XD. So I want to kind of take this drop-down menu and make, I took this from our XD UI kit. So this is something that, this is basically this little drop-down that you would find in our properties inspector. But I want to make a series of drop-downs that are really chunky, because I love the big, bold chunkiness of this image, and it's inspiring me to make like a big, chunky drop-down menu type of thing. You're very welcome, Santaji. I'm glad to help. So let's do that. Let me make a really chunky menu. So the first thing I did is actually make this a local component. It was linked. So this looks like it's a component as well. So I'm gonna ungroup that component. And now I'm gonna make all of this, I'm gonna make that a new component in this document. So I wanna make this, let's see, what's a menu that I could be making? I want to make this text white, and then I want to increase the size of it. And what if I make it Helvetica Neue bold? And I want to make these corners not round at all, so I can do that by pulling out the corner radius controls, or if I wanted to specify that manually, I can come here and just say 0 corner radius. Great, so I'm thinking now about actually doing something even more interesting. What if these were sort of grayscale pull-down menus, but then when you hovered over them, they became different fun colors. So I'm gonna start out by making this actually more of a gray, so that there's a greater contrast with the text. And now I need something that this menu is going to be about. Why don't we, this is, using Helvetica makes me think of travel and international signs. So why don't I make these just different cities around the world, and maybe the drop down is information about those cities. So I'm gonna just pull this out and make each of these components and what other cities? Let's do Cairo, and let's do Tokyo. Okay, so what my vision for this is you hover over this component, and the color changes, and the text and the drop-down expands to show more information. So in order to do that, actually one more thing, I want to have these be a little bit of a gradient themselves. So I want to make it a little bit darker as you go down. So it looks gray and unassuming, but really it's a little bit of a sneak preview of a fun color gradient when you hover. So I'm gonna just make that a little bit darker. Great. Okay, so I want to show off and use our new states feature, and I wanna use the hover component. So, okay, I have this in my default state, and now I'm gonna make a new state by clicking this plus button. Okay, here's my hover state. So now I have a hover state. Yes, I accept. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna click in here and I'm gonna add to this component a colored overlay. Alrighty, and then I'm gonna give that a blend mode. So let's make it, let's see. Color burn, I think, is going to be the ticket. So now I have this colored overlay. I don't need that anymore. And I also maybe want to show, I want it to pull out. So let me click in here, get down under here, and then, oh, whoops, you know what? I'm still in my hover state, that's what I wanted. So I'm gonna show, I'm gonna make this a pull down menu and show additional options. So, okay, I think I might need to send these backwards. Okay, there we go. So I sent those other options backwards so that when this pulls down, it's pulling down over and I can show it. Okay, so Paris, and then on the hover state, it'll be like this, and then I'll show, this will be, let's say this is a travel guide. So we'll say, oh, you know what, I can make this a repeat grid. I'm really kind of layering in a lot of different features, which is exciting. And I want to make these a little bit smaller text-wise because I want it to sort of, I want the hierarchy to be a little more giving the title more importance. Okay, so now I sort of cheated and had this up here, and I'm going to bring it down. I'm going to give some lines in between, just to separate. Okay, so I think we have our super fun hover state using a blend mode. Now let's see. Let's see if it works. I'm gonna put this on its own artboard. So now I've switched into my desktop preview mode, and I'm gonna hover, and there it goes. It flips down, the blend mode overlay shows, and I think that I'm pretty much out of time, but what I would like to do from there is go through and make each of those have a really fun, really bold gradient color using blend modes. So that's it for my time today. Thank you so much for joining me in the chat. It was really fun to hang out with you all and talk about blend modes, talk about how we make features in XD. So signing off, see you next time.